Hello, it's Vicar Ezekiel Grabow for our 9th day of Advent and our 9th day of the Jesse tree. And I just wanted to point out to you that yesterday was day 8, which means we're more than 1 week into Advent. We're about 1/4 of the way, more than 1/4 of the way to Christmas. And as we keep going through Advent and preparing for Christmas, we're going to keep talking about how God prepared for the coming of Christ. And one of the ways which he was preparing for the coming of Christ was by bringing his people, Israel, out of Egypt. We talked last time about how the children of Israel, the children of Jacob, had become slaves in the land of Egypt after moving there to live with Joseph. And God appeared to Moses in the burning bush to tell him to go and tell Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to let his people go. But Pharaoh would not be a very good listener. Pharaoh would refuse to let God's people go. And so God decided to pour out his wrath on the people of Egypt and the land of Egypt, not only to convince Pharaoh to let his people go, but to show that he's the one true God, and that their gods didn't have the power to do all the wonders that he could do. And so God kept sending these plagues, terrible, wonderful things that God sent to show his power to the people of Egypt. But Pharaoh kept not listening. 9 plagues God sent, plagues like turning water into blood, sending frogs into every part of the house, locusts to consume food, hail and lightning and darkness. But God told Moses that the worst was yet to come, the 10th plague. God told Moses and his brother Aaron that he was going to kill all the firstborn sons in the land of Egypt. A terrible, terrible plague. But God wouldn't just kill all those children. He had mercy. He told Moses and Aaron to tell the people that they should take a lamb without blemish, and that they should sacrifice it. And taking the blood, they should mark the doorposts with the blood of that lamb. And that blood would be a sign that the angel of the Lord should pass over that house, and no death should enter it. So God gave them a way to be saved from this plague. And it wasn't just that he told them to do. He told them that they should prepare a meal that included bread made without leaven or without yeast. That command wouldn't make that much sense to the people of Israel until later. But God told them that this meal, this sacrificing of a lamb and making bread without yeast, without leaven, was not just supposed to be for one night, but that they should celebrate it as a holiday every single year to remember how God passed over their houses. And so that holiday would be called the Passover. Well, our symbol for today has to do with that bread. It's the kneading bowl. This is from Exodus chapter 12. The people of Israel went and did so. As the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where someone was not dead. Then he summoned Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Up, go out from among my people, both you and the people of Israel, and go, serve the Lord as you have said. Take your flocks and your herds as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also. The Egyptians were urgent with the people, to send them out of the land in haste, for they said, We shall all be dead. So the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading bowls being bound up in their cloaks on their shoulders. Kneading bowls are used for making bread. When you make bread, you have to knead it. And part of that process, after you've kneaded it, is letting it rise. That's what the leaven or the yeast is for. But letting bread rise can take a long time. You have to cover it and put it somewhere warm and wait for hours and hours. So if you have somewhere that you need to go quickly, you want to make bread without leaven. And the other advantage is that when you make bread without leaven, it lasts longer. It doesn't go bad as quickly. So unleavened bread is better for long journeys. So God had commanded the people of Israel to make unleavened bread for the Passover so that they would be ready for their journey, so that they would be ready to leave Egypt. The kneading bowl shows us how God delivered his people, how he prepared them to go out from the land of Egypt. And the Passover lamb is a symbol too. You might notice we have our ram right below the kneading bowl. I did that very intentionally because just as Isaac and how he was going to be sacrificed on the mountain, but God provided a ram in his place, the same thing is true of the Passover lamb, the lamb that was sacrificed in the place of the children of Israel. That Passover lamb, the true Passover lamb, would be Jesus Christ, the lamb without blemish, whose blood would turn aside God's wrath. That blood would be shed upon the cross for our forgiveness, so that God would pass over all our sins and all the things that we did wrong. So in the Exodus, in the people of Israel coming out of the land of Egypt, there's much for us to learn about how God rescues us through Jesus Christ. We're going to talk more about Moses and the people of Israel tomorrow.